President Trump asserted tonight that the economy has already been fixed. That is something that stands in growing contrast to what we're hearing from a bunch of Republicans on Capitol Hill who have been acknowledging that the failure to act when it comes to health care, as you just heard from Senator Sanders there say he believes is probably inevitable, could actually cost them next November.
How big of a problem would it be for your party if you do not come up with a plan for health care?
Well, I mean, I just don't know how Republicans would explain that to 24 million Americans whose premiums are going to double.
Are you worried that you guys are on the wrong side of public opinion?
It very well could be if we don't come up with something that lets American people know that we're trying to fix this, and we are.
And if you don't have something viable, what are the implications for your party?
Well, I think they could be significant. Look, the Democrats created the problem. We've got to solve it. Or going into next year, we will own a problem that they created.
Joining me tonight is another Republican from Capitol Hill, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who is also running for governor in South Carolina and joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. Obviously, they're talking about health care there. I want to talk about that. But on the economy, just overall, the president today said he gives it an A++++, 5 pluses. Do you think that's what voters in South Carolina think right now?
Well, certainly when you're looking at the growth of the economy and GDP, we've had multiple quarters this year have 4% GDP growth, and we'll see real GDP growth at 3% at the end of this year. So that is enormous for the economy. Wages went up about 1% actually over the course of this year. But the cost of living in a state like South Carolina, where we're one of the top fastest growing states in the country by population growth, the cost of living has skyrocketed, which is why any plan to cut taxes, we saw the president implement, no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security, et cetera. We have to do the same thing in states like South Carolina, where we have one of the highest state income taxes in the Southeast at 6.2% right now.
And as you've been running for governor, I assume you've been talking to a lot of voters, hearing from a lot of their concerns. Would they say, though, that affordability is a con job?
Number one issue.
So not a con job.
It is the number one issue in South Carolina. That and illegal immigration, we have Tren de Agua, Sinaloa cartel, MS-13 in South Carolina. We have sanctuary sheriffs, even though we've banned sanctuary policies in our state. Roads and bridges, the kitchen table, bread and butter issues that affect everyday hardworking Americans are what people are focused on right now. And it is the economy. It is wages. It is jobs. It is, can I afford this mortgage or this rent? How do I, as me running for governor, I have a plan to cut the state income tax down to 0 in less than 5 years because of the huge growth that we're having. I think we can do it in 2 to 3, reasonably and responsibly in a sane and stable manner.
So given that, how do you think voters hear the president's speech tonight when he's saying, prices are down, inflation is down, or virtually non-existent, as he stated? Obviously, that's not the case.
Well, I mean, I agree with him with the strength of the economy right now. We didn't have that in the last 4 years, but that's where we are now. One of the points that Secretary Dissent made this weekend was that the inflation woes we have now is related to the service industry, the service economy, not to tariffs. And so what we're seeing, Trump's even talking about giving billions of dollars to farmers. And
he's giving him $12 billion.
Yeah, and creating a fund for kids, for children who are born, giving them $1,000 when they're born to go into a fund for them that will be invested. And so we're doing things that have never been done before in the history of the country because he's building this really very strong economy.
Yeah, but the $12 billion is because of the tariffs, obviously, that have been hurting farmers, which is,
And that money's going to go back into the economy. Same thing with tax breaks. I believe we're going to see in Q1 of 2026, because of the tax breaks that Trump created, you're going to see people, when they get that money back, they're going to reinvest it into the economy. Economy is going to continue to grow.
Okay, but you're saying what you've heard on the campaign trail is that affordability is a big concern.
Affordability, cost of living, mortgage, rent, child care is very important. We've got in D.C., we're in D.C. right now, for example, there are some very regulations that increase the cost of childcare, for example. You have to have a 4-year college degree to be in childcare in Washington. Like, that doesn't make sense. There are states that there's no reciprocity with people who are qualified caregivers. There are just things that we're doing regulation-wise that we could immediately reduce the cost of goods.
Well, can I ask you about Washington? Because you had an opinion piece in the New York Times that made a lot of headlines and waves here in Washington. And part of it, you said, Republicans have a governing trifecta, the House, the Senate, the White House. You said if we fail to pass legislation that permanently secures the border, addresses the affordability crisis, improves health care, and restores law and order, we will lose this majority, and we will deserve it.
We just saw President Trump run on his policies and win in a landslide in November. And we have yet to implement and codify his executive orders, his agenda
Why not?
in the U.S. South? Well, that's a great question. I mean, one of the couple things that I cited in my op-ed was that there's massive support for banning stock trading for members of Congress, massive support for term limits, massive support for voter ID, et cetera. But we can't get Republicans or Democrats, by the way. It's not just a Mike Johnson problem. Hakeem Jeffries, too. Everyone says we're all for these things, and 80 to 90% of America's for it, too, but we won't bring these things to the floor.
Yeah, but Hakeem Jeffries can't bring a bill to the floor for a vote. Mike Johnson, the speaker, can.
Yeah, and I blame our party for not doing that. And if we don't implement President Trump's agenda, if we don't codify his executive orders, if we don't deliver on his promises for him and the American people, it will be a bloodbath in the midterms.
Well, and on healthcare concerns, primarily, there are almost 632,000 people in your home state, as you know, that are going to see their health care premiums potentially double as a result of these expirations. The speaker said today that he anticipates working on health care through the second quarter of next year because he says there's a lot to fix. He did tell us recently, when we had him on the show last, he said this. If the government reopened tonight, would Republicans have a plan to address the Obamacare subsidies?
Yes.
You would have a
we do.
plan
We
tonight.
have proposals to, we could have that ready
proposal's different than a
immediately.
plan.
Yes.
That was October 23rd. Here it is, December 9th. Do you think that Speaker Johnson has a health care plan?
Well, we haven't seen any language yet, but I would say the first thing that we should do to address health care in this country is look at how government has contributed to the problem. We have overregulation in many markets. We have states that still have certificate of need programs. We don't have price transparency. Trump is working on that now. But because of the lack of competition in the market, because of government subsidies, because of overregulations, the cost of health care is exponential today. It is unattainable and unaffordable for most middle-class Americans. And thank God there are businesses who have come on board that pay for healthcare premiums that at least partially are in full when you're talking to small businesses. But there are a lot of government regulations we have to remove and also quantify. We have in South Carolina, for example, doctors, when they leave a hospital system to start their own practice, they can't compete with the hospital within a certain mileage. I mean, it's just crazy what we're doing to the healthcare market.
So you're a Republican, and you're saying you have not seen a Republican plan.
I've not seen any language. No language. There's no language that's been out. If we're going to vote on healthcare next week, which is a rumor, no one has seen the plan. We haven't read it. I would like to see it. I would like to put my teeth into it because I look at a state like South Carolina where overregulation has hurt the market, and I want to make sure that whether we're talking about PBMs, whether we're talking about pharmaceuticals, whether we're talking about a nurse practitioner, just basically being able to execute what she's certified and qualified to do, these small changes can make a huge, huge difference in the healthcare market.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene is someone who has also voiced her concerns with Republican leadership. She's actually resigning from her position, from her job as a member of Congress in just a few weeks from now. This is what she said earlier today when she was here on CNN about the president.
I feel very sorry for President Trump. I genuinely do. It has to be a hard place for someone that is constantly so hateful and puts so much vitriol, name-calling, and really tells lies about people in order to try to get his way or win some kind of fight.
Do you agree with her?
I agree that President Trump is a fighter. He's fighting for values that the American people believe.
Well, she wasn't
He's
saying
been
that in a good way.
Very, very effective. And, you know, it does sadden me to see President Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene be at odds with one another. I want the MAGA movement to be cohesive, to be together. The MAGA movement is what delivered President Trump the presidency in November. That's why he ran in a landslide. I like his ideas. I like his policies. I'm also sad to see Marjorie Taylor Greene go. I think she's been very smart, very effective. She knows procedural motions. She knows legislation. She was effective on the Oversight Committee, was a serious lawmaker. And, you know, it's going to hurt us in the long run. But she's also right. They're both right. And we're not delivering on our promises or on Trump's promises. And Trump was actually caught on the hot mic yesterday lamenting that Republicans haven't implemented his attorney generals, like permanently installed them yet. The time's going to run out. And so I agree with him on his frustration and hers, too. They're not mutually exclusive.